Hi guys, welcome back to 10-Minute Reviews where we talk about authors and books. I'm Jason bringing you today's video. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite authors. I've talked about him in the past, and this time I want to talk about my personal favorite book of all the books he's written, which is pretty tough to quantify because all of his books are just absolutely, utterly phenomenal. So please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. We post a bunch of videos. This is what we do. We read, as you can tell from behind us. That's only a small fraction of our various bookshelves. So the author I'm talking about, Raymond E Feist. Now before I talked about his magician books, which was one book that was broken into two because it was so large, Magician Apprentice and Magician Master. What I want to talk about today is the sequel to it. Now originally when he started this, he wrote Magician, then he wrote the sequels, Silverthorn, and then he wrote the fourth book of Darkness and Sethanon. So originally it was kind of a trilogy because again that first book was split into two. Now that turned out to be so incredibly popular, it spawned this massive series of books that it's just, I mean, it's incredible. He finally ended it, which I really enjoyed because a lot of these authors that end up with these massive worlds and huge series where they write these trilogies in different parts of the world, different parts of history, they just kind of keep milking it. And Raymond E Feist, he finally actually ended it so that there's actual closure to pretty much everybody's story in the books. Now, Silverthorn is fantastic because it occurs as a sequel to Magician, so the Rift War is over, the Rift has been closed, and some of the Surani are still in Mechemia, like Kasumi, who's been appointed as an Earl, so he's actually joined the Mechemian government, and their soldiers have become part of the Mechemian army, and it centers around Arutha Condoin from the first book, who is now the Prince of Krondor. He's the brother of the king. Because there's no heir, he is the Prince of Krondor, so he basically rules the West. And because Mechemia is so incredibly large, the king rules from Rillanon in the east, and the prince rules from Krondor in the west. He does, of course, answer the king, but he's pretty much autonomous. He's ruling the western half of the kingdom for the king. And it deals with his marriage to Anita. At least that's how it starts out. And if you guys read the first couple books, you remember the whole romance and all that between them. But what ends up happening is, first, a returning character. Now, one that was a relatively minor side character in the first couple books, a young thief named Jimmy the Hand. He makes an appearance in this book, and from this is where he really springboards, because he ends up being possibly my favorite character or second favorite character in all of the books. It kind of sucks that he's just a regular mortal because he can't appear in later books that go further along the timeline. But Jimmy the Hand gets wind of an assassination plot against Arutha, and he basically violates, not breaks, but he violates his oath to the Thieves Guild in order to go warn Arutha rather than report to the Thieves Guild. And through this warning, he ends up actually stopping the assassin, although not before he can fire off a poison crossbow bolt. And that's what really sparks this entire book, and actually sparks both books, both Silverthorn and Darkness and Sethanon, that occurs directly after. And again, the bolt is poisoned and misses Arutha but hits Anita. So some of the guests, of course, are extraordinarily powerful, if you remember from the first books, including Pug. Pug has returned, or Milamber, if you want to go with his Surani name. He's of course back in Mechemia, and he is an adopted member of the Condoin family, a friend of Arutha's. So he is there at the wedding, and he, while unable to heal or cure Princess Anita, he is able to save her life by basically putting her in a suspended animation. That gives them time to figure out the poison. Now, through some research, they discovered that this poison is extremely rare and can only be cured with something called Silverthorn that they now have to go out and find. Now, the first half of the book almost deals with them just investigating the poison and trying to find what can cure it before they find out about Silverthorn. Now, through this, they find out, they hear rumors of a new lord rising in the north, I believe, Myrmindamus, and some prophecy that he can only be defeated by the Lord of the West, which is West. So he is the one that prompted this assassination attempt, and you start being introduced to the Dark Slayers that are assassins almost, but they can't be killed. They rise again when they are killed. There's some great magic at play here, and some great power behind Myrmindamus that they can't quite figure out. Now, Pug, through his own investigations and other things, he reopens a rift. A smaller rift travels back to Serani. So part of the book occurs in Seranwani, as Pug continues to learn more about his magic. And he discovers while he's there that he can do things he's not supposed to be able to do, but only under great stress, which then reminds him of things he did as a child under Kulgan before he was captured and became a Great One, that also only occurred under great stress that he's never been able to repeat. So he once again starts learning more and more about magic. He goes to try and find Macross the Black, this legendary magician on Midkemia. He also helps almost bridge a peace between Seranwani and the kingdom, and finds out a little bit more about what the enemy is that the Surani are so afraid of from their history, and why they had to close the rift because it was drawing the enemy back. And that's almost a side plot going on of Pug and Seranwani and Midkemia and learning there. Then you've got the main plot of Arutha, who teams up with Laurie, who was the friend of Pug's that was also a slave, who ended up marrying Princess Carline, and then Roald, basically a mercenary. You've got a Haddadi, basically the hill person, warrior who's sworn to slay Myrmindamus, and of course Jimmy Hand and his thieving ways, let's say. And Jimmy takes a really prominent role in this book. As they travel north, they have to sneak their way in, because again, small party, it's kind of the usual small party trope kind of thing. They've got Martin Longbow, and who's now the Duke of Cryde. So they've got a lot of nobility traveling in this small little party. And they, of course, they make it, and they retrieve the Silverthorn. They manage to save Princess Anita's life, and theoretically, everybody lives happily ever after. Of course, Jimmy is under punishment of death from the Thieves Guild for betraying his oath. So, of course, Arutha has to do some negotiating there with the Thieves Guild in order to get Jimmy out from underneath that, because he owes him. He saved his life many times, actually. Not only did he save his life, he also helped save Anita's life, and just has become a very, very prominent, very prominent person. So of course they also end up finding out that Jimmy just might possibly, maybe a little bit, be the legitimate child of the head of the Thieves Guild, which doesn't really come into play ever again. It's just a kind of an amusing little aside, and sort of explains why the upright man, as he's called, is willing to even make this deal. So, and this is what really starts to springboard, because this sort of launches the last book in the original group of books called The Darkness of Sethanon, that I will talk about in a later video, which from there blows up into this massive series. Raymond E Feist's world building is just absolutely unreal, especially when it comes to Midkemia and just this world, and honestly this universe, because it does end up encompassing multiple worlds and realities and universes, time travel. It's pretty incredible. Raymond E Feist is just absolutely unreal author. Probably one of the greatest fantasy authors of the last 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, he may end up going down as one of the greatest fantasy authors ever. It's just absolutely phenomenal. So please, after you hit those like and subscribe buttons, go check out Raymond E Feist. And if you've already read Magician, you've got to read Silverthorn. Again, it's one of my favorite books. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye now.